Mars opposite the Ascendant in Synastry. This is my Synastry series. So the Ascendant person in this shared Synastry will to some degree experience disillusionment with the Mars person. Okay, when we think about meeting new people, especially of a romantic or sexual nature, we tend to appear in a way that isn't quite authentic. Granted, that is usually, generally the case, because most people believe that first impressions are important. Therefore, we are subjected to these false facades, personalities, and ultimately the appearances of others. Those who like to think of themselves as open-minded and adaptable are especially challenged. There are some ascendant signs that are indeed open-minded, flexible, accepting, and accommodating to whomever or whatever is opposite to them. And then there are ascendant signs who simply are not. The problem with this opposition will depend heavily on the ascendant person because, as aforementioned, some want to believe they are open-minded to others that are different than they are, than those who are not, but may surprise you if if you apply the right pressure. They may become tolerant and eventually accepting. Now, as with any synastry compilation, it can vary how the energy is played out between two individuals in a relationship. The Ascendant in astrology reveals the perspective that one has of their environment and the world, in this case, relationship. Our perspectives are born from experiences in addition to what we observe and how others treat us. A Libra ascendant, for example, views the world in relations to others. Everything is superficial, surface level, sexual, materialistic, and all about, being in a relationship of some kind. A Libra ascendant believes truly that their appearances and people skills can make or break them, whereas a Scorpio ascendant has experienced circumstances that make them perceive the world in an untrusting manner. A Scorpio ascendant understands why a Libra ascendant thinks appearances are in impressing others are matters, though they do not agree, nor will they make a Scorpio ascendant act or see the world or their environment the same, and so forth. Tongue twister, okay? Now, a Libra ascendant will trust everyone because they do not know or want to believe that others do not deserve to be trusted like that of a Scorpio ascendant individual. A Libra ascendant person, for example, will attract a Mars opposition, and this superficiality mentality and worldly perspective will be challenged by way of the Mars person. And trust me, the Mars person will either make or break the ascendant person. Now, if the Mars person, quote unquote, breaks the ascendant and Libra person, this will manifest as avoidance. Now, I'm just using Libra and Scorpio ascendant as an example, so follow me. Now, with such a statement made about making or breaking a person, this proves to be very relevant if we consider Mars being co-ruled by Scorpio as well. The Mars person not only brings challenges, but also offers transformation, and this eventually become painful, shocking, foreign, and very uncomfortable to the ascendant person, depending on the sign the ascendant resides in. Some opposites attract and can handle the other, whereas others cannot. Perhaps this occurs because there is a lack of respect for the opposite energy, and in this case, person. Now, in the beginning, we are all on our best behavior, and the Mars person has the ability to suppress their natural energy, aka put up a facade, but this eventually will be perceived as deceptive to the ascendant person who saw a different side, a more appealing side in the Mars person in the beginning. Now, talk is cheap, whereas action matters. Therefore, the ascendant person easily believes the words coming from the Mars person until their actions start to not match. No pun intended. Now, with opposites, it's very difficult to determine where the energy starts and begins. We all may assume that the Mars person may be the initiator or the pursuer of the ascendant person, but sometimes it's the other way around. The Mars person may be attracted to the ascendant person because subconsciously they feel that it is their mission and duty to challenge the ascendant person and to give them a new perspective on life. The ascendant person, however, may be attracted towards the Mars person because they are seeking a different outlook, challenge, perspective, or even maybe pain or drama. The synastry combination reminds me of financially comfortable or a wealthy person who may be attracted to someone who physically opposes that. Let's say the ascendant person was born into a wealthy family. We can already assume their perspective on life is in alignment with wealth, and he or she may not resonate or understand the struggles of those who are not born or raised into wealth. So if the Mars person is the one who was born into the trenches and somehow attracts the ascendant person who, in my example, is wealthy, the Mars person and their struggles and baggage will challenge the ascendant person. The ascendant person may eventually become down to earth, understanding, sympathetic, even, or maybe humble, or simply reject the Mars person because they do not fit into their worldly perspective. The ascendant person may have the perspective of, well, I have money, therefore I must be with someone who has money. We see this play out in reality, and the rare times we see the opposite, a wealthy man or woman who chooses someone regular and normal, it's a big deal. Of course, speculation that really derives from jealousy is cued in with statements like he or she just wants them for their money, status, or looks. For me, it's honestly quite sad, but I digress. Now, let's say the ascendant person has a Sagittarius rising. In simplistic terms, they have had the privilege to travel the world or to enroll in an Ivy League school, college. Let's say the Mars person is a Gemini and they have only traveled locally or went to community college. The ascendant person may not accept the Mars person because to them they aren't good enough. This energy can also play out where the Mars person is never in the right places to even attract the ascendant person because they simply just don't have access. The ascendant person is like the important person in the VIP, whereas the Mars person is stuck outside waiting in line for a chance to get in. They may share the same space, environment, or see each other in passing, but they may never actually get the chance to meet. In the event that they do meet, there's a small window allotted for the ascendant person, really, to decide if they can tolerate the challenge the Mars person presents. More examples would be the ascendant person being the CEO and the Mars person being the worker. Obviously, the CEO makes more money and ultimately is superior to the Mars person. Will the CEO give the Mars person a chance, especially in a relationship sense? Or will the CEO look down upon the Mars person? Will the CEO ever be in the same room as the worker, aka the Mars person? Now, the ascendant person is like a celebrity and the Mars person the groupie, especially if the ascendant person has an arrogant perspective contingent upon the sign that the ascendant is in. Perhaps the ascendant person comes into contact with the Mars person in a clothing store, kind of like how Chris Brown met Karrueche. Now, I'm not saying Karrueche was a groupie, but she certainly knew who Chris Brown was, and it wasn't the other way around. Karrueche was working in a clothing store, and Chris Brown and met Chris Brown, and it was at that moment that he felt challenged. I can only assume his perspective and thoughts about Karrueche being the Mars person was along the lines of, should I entertain this woman? If I do, I'll make her famous or well-known like me. What if she's going to use me or try to get pregnant? And so forth. With Chris Brown being the ascendant person, his perspective is deriving from his lifestyle, experiences, and past relationships that are now being challenged in such a moment. From the outside looking in, Chris Brown chose Karrueche because Chris Brown initially was a nobody before and became somebody. Therefore, choosing Karrueche, the Mars person, he accepted the challenge of her being a normal person and gave her a chance, which is a rare situation. I may have digressed, however, the point is, in that moment, they were both opposites, and they eventually fell in love until Karrueche was disillusioned by way of being cheated on by Chris Brown. There is always some kind of superiority and inferiority complex with this Synastry combination, in which also breeds insecurity, mainly for the Mars person. Mars energetically is always trying to prove themselves, and this is extended especially towards the ascendant person. You would think the Mars person is in control of this dynamic, but no, not at all. I personally have Mars in Taurus, and let's say I came across a Scorpio ascendant. The Scorpio ascendant person is already set in their ways and viewpoints of everything around them, including themselves. With my Mars in Taurus, though it's fixed, I would feel inclined to make the Scorpio person or ascendant person trust me. Having the Scorpio ascendant person trust me is the challenge that I want to overcome. The Scorpio ascendant person will be challenged with actually trusting me when I've done nothing but show trustworthiness. However, I am the one exerting more energy as the Mars person. It is more important for the Mars person to gain validation, I suppose, from the ascendant person than the other way around. Back to my example, Chris Brown being the ascendant person can have anyone he wants, and Karrueche being the Mars person knows this. She would have had been the one trying to be the only one, more so than Chris Brown as the ascendant person. In a way, the Synastry combination is fated, especially if the ascendant person accepts the challenge of their opposite. Karrueche may have never met or come across Chris Brown at any point in her life because they did not run in the same circles, nor does she have the same money or status that Chris Brown has. It was clearly fated, and the two of them falling in love was the proof. The Synastry is also equivalent to star-crossed lovers to some degree. The rich and the poor, the educated and the uneducated, the successful one and the unsuccessful one, the attractive one and the unattractive one, the hustler and the lazy motherfucker, the drug dealer and the church girl or boy, the promiscuous one and the virgin, the skinny one and the fat one, but you get the point. The ascendant is the rising one, so to reiterate, the Mars person will be the one who feels insecure or unworthy somehow in this dynamic. As a Libra ascendant, it would be very difficult to be with a Mars and Aries individual who's only focused on themselves, whereas I'm focused on both of us. I wouldn't be able to respect a Mars and Aries individual because of their selfishness and my selflessness. So I repeat, some opposites can work and others not so much. I would feel inclined to avoid a Mars and Aries individual because as a Libra ascendant, I have no interest in changing my perspective on equal give and take, even if my perspective is superficial and unrealistic, as a Libra ascendant can be. This dynamic also reminds me of people who walk past expensive stores in the mall without so much as a glance. The expensive store is the ascendant, and the passerby is the Mars person. The Mars person won't glance or even look inside the store because they are intimidated or insecure about not being able to afford whatever is inside the store, aka the ascendant. So most times you will observe or not that the Mars person really wants the ascendant person, but again does not feel confident enough to approach them or change them. But this is covered up by not appearing or acting as if they want the ascendant person to begin with. Expensive stores never reduce their prices, which makes them exclusive. It will be up to the Mars person, the passerby, to step their funds up to walk inside the store and to be able to truly buy something. Back to my previous example. The Mars person is the one who may or may not put in the extreme effort to prove themselves to the ascendant person because the ascendant person may not change their perspective. Just like expensive stores may never change their prices despite your sob stories, expired or fraudulent coupons. Just like as a Libra ascendant, I would not care about whatever sob stories or life circumstances that made a Mars and Aries individual selfish. I simply just cannot accept that behavior no matter what. As for mentioned above, with opposites, it is very difficult to tell where the energy starts and ends. Therefore, the roles can be interchangeable. The ascendant person could very well be the insecure one who may need to change their perspective, etc., to earn the Mars person, but again, this is contingent on the signs involved. And this is my interpretation for Mars opposing the ascendant in Synastry. Okay, Chris Brown and Carucci, I do not know their placements, their Synastry. I was just using them as an example. All right, and I was using Libra, Scorpio, and I think I mentioned Sagittarius energy as well as an example.